Hello folks, welcome back to Dragon Tail Tarot. My name is Ariel and we are on to the second half of the first chapter from Jan Spiller's book Astrology for the Soul. This is going to be the second half of the North Node in Aries. If you have the physical book, that is going to be page 41. At the bottom we are starting with the section of relationships, dependence. Dependence on harmony with others, especially the marriage partner, is the primary issue for Aries North Node people in this lifetime. Actually, the problem goes beyond dependence. It may involve total identification with the partner and sometimes with all significant others. Aries North Nodes often become so identified with their partners that they are overwhelmed by the other person's emotions. When the other person feels distraught, their first reaction is to rush to say whatever is necessary to restore harmony so that they, the Aries North Nodes, can feel better. They handle the partner as an extension of themselves, and then they lose patience trying to get the other person to straighten up and be harmonious so that they can feel comfortable with themselves again. But their sense of urgency generally makes things worse. These folks need to notice that when they try to regain their own inner harmony by manipulating their partner, it doesn't work. What does work when they feel a lack of harmony from their partner is to politely excuse themselves and spend some time alone. Aries North Nodes need to respect others enough to allow them to experience whatever they're feeling and to work through it on their own unless they do ask for help. This is how people reach a deeper level of self-awareness. Additionally, these natives can gain a better understanding of what is happening with their partner when they get a little distance. This is why it is so crucial for them to have their own space, surrounded by their own personal possessions, to reinforce their sense of identity. They need a private place to go when they become over-identified with the partner, a place where they can be alone. Boundaries. Oh, the big one, boundaries. These folks can never experience inner tranquility as long as they refuse to acknowledge their own boundaries and their partners and allow another person to be their center. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who came to me hoping to resolve marriage difficulties. He had been married for 23 years, had a good deal of money, and his pattern had always been to appease his wife's moods by buying her things. They traveled extensively, anything to keep her happy, because when she was happy, he was happy. But it was all manipulation on his part so he could remain undisturbed and have a sense of solidity because he had placed her at his center. Over the years, she became increasingly difficult to please, and eventually nothing could satisfy her. She became verbally abusive to other family members as a way of generating a sense of her own substance and individual personhood. The destructiveness accelerated until the negative energy even made her unhappy. My client was beside himself. Nothing he could do would keep his partner happy and his own center undisturbed. This is a lesson Aries North Node people are learning. Even under ideal conditions, it is impossible to remain peaceful when someone else rests in your center. None of us really knows what can keep another person happy, and we rob them of the challenge of discovering and fulfilling themselves if we take on that responsibility. If my client had not distracted his wife from her moments of unhappiness so that he could stay calm, she would have had the opportunity to learn how to handle her own moods. This might have averted her need to become destructive as a means of finally being in charge of her own inner state of being. Aries North Node people are not accustomed to declaring the boundaries of their own identity immediately, as those boundaries arise within them. They still feel a need to support their partner even if it goes against their own best interest. So if their partner disagrees with something they want to do, they may say, okay, I won't do it, but decide they're going to do it anyway. By not honestly standing up for themselves, they reinforce an unhealthy dependence within the relationship. Some of these kinds of problems stem from the tremendous love and compassion that these folks are born with. They've spent so many past lifetimes developing sensitivity that now it is not unusual for them to feel more compassionate toward another person or situation than their partner does. Sometimes the partner may not want to deal with a certain problem, and the Aries North Node says, okay, we won't, in order to avoid disharmony. Then they start to feel resentful, yet helpless to correct the situation. Their need to support others can lead them to go behind the partner's back and lend a helping hand, but then their partner feels a breach of trust, which damages the relationship, and the Aries North Node person feels unsupported in being who he really is. Resolution for this problem can come through both parties expanding the idea of we to become more flexible, sometimes as a team and sometimes as two separate individuals. In the above situation, Aries North Node should communicate what he is experiencing, which takes a lot of courage. For example, okay, I hear that you feel resistance to supporting this situation, and I want to put energy into it, so I'll do this independently. When the recognition of a different preference arises, these folks need to risk saying, I don't feel that way about it. The problem isn't doing what they feel is correct. The problem is in lying about it. Choosing a partner. In seeking a mate or any other close connection, Aries North Node people are subconsciously seeking a relationship in which they can lose themselves. They wish to become so submerged in the other person that they're totally safe. It's the old half plus half equals one whole theory, but it doesn't work for these people. Rather, they're here to learn that one whole plus one whole equals a healthy team. However, until they become aware, they will attempt to find someone with whom they can identify, and then they pour all their love and support into reinforcing that other person. But when they seek a partner from this position, it never works out. Often they are attracted to people who abuse them or let them down. In fact, just the opposite approach is scheduled to work for these folks. They need to stop focusing on others and concentrate on themselves instead. As they begin to focus on being themselves, allowing their own true unique identity to emerge and going in their own individual direction, their energy will attract the right person, someone who will truly appreciate and value them. Aries North Node people are so accustomed to the joys of partnership from past lives that they subconsciously associate being happy with being in a relationship that is mutually, joyfully symbiotic. They came into this lifetime wanting to do everything with their partner all the time. They are basically cheerful people, but an energy drain is taking place beneath the surface of the relationship that is based on feelings of dependence. Aries North Node's need for attention and to be included as part of the other person's identity are a bottomless pit. Subconsciously, these folks believe they cannot survive without the energy of others, so they tend to cultivate a mutual dependence with stronger people around them. They take time and energy away from their own goals to help the partner reach theirs. They give of their understanding, being more sensitive to others' needs than to their own. In this way, they create dependence, becoming an integral part of what the other person needs to survive. Then Aries North Node people resent their partners for interfering with their independence and blame them when they don't reach their goals, even though the Aries North Nodes created the unhealthy dependence. They think it's love. Indeed, these folks are very loving and cooperative, but a lot of their self-sacrifice is a subconscious manipulation. Love never expects anything in return for giving, and resentment is a byproduct of expecting something and not getting it. Aries North Node people must learn to be honest with themselves and others about how much they are willing to give and what they do expect in return. Being part of a team means making sure they are also supported. Learning independence. Because these folks are learning the lesson of not depending on others, they subconsciously attract people who are undependable. Although this gives them the opportunity to learn to depend on themselves, the process can be quite painful. Aries North Node people are so often intent on influencing the relationship in ways that result in the complete integration of two people that they don't fully notice the partner's identity. They see the other person only in terms of what it takes to please him or her. They don't generally stop to notice who the other person is on a deeper level, in terms of his or her true inner identity. Worse yet, because they are looking for someone to fill their center so they can feel complete, they assume that others also lack a sense of self and are looking for a partner in order to gain a sense of completion. Thus, they enter relationships with some very naive and inaccurate premises, operating with flawed ideas of who the other person is and what he or she wants. Aries North Node people often become deeply emotionally invested and then end up confused when the other person leaves or lets them down. Many other people do have a sense of their own center, and many independent types will rebel against the stifling aspect of Aries North Node wanting to be connected at every moment, in consciousness if not physically. Aries North Node people tend to gravitate to people who are selfish and require a great deal of personal attention. They attract types who expect total attention and accept their energy without giving back on an equal basis. Through indiscriminate giving, Aries North Nodes may also inadvertently cause an initially sensitive partner to become insensitive. Generally, these folks are better off around people who show some sensitivity in return. They are more comfortable around people with whom they don't have to clash energy. They have a tendency to allow the other person to completely submerge them, so they need to be with someone who encourages them to be themselves and who won't abuse their loving, giving nature. Of course, letting people know where they stand helps others to be sensitive in return. Indirect approaches, avoiding conflicts. Aries North Node people sometimes are so attached to peace and harmony that they inadvertently damage their relationships by avoiding all conflict. They may start out saying, okay, I'm going to be a team player, then foresee a conflict. Rather than deal with it when it comes along, they postpone it until it becomes a major dispute. Their challenge is to be vigilant and constantly standing their ground and verbalizing their impulses right away. For example, if an idea excites them, they need to say, I want to do this, rather than lie about it or downplay it. What stops them is their fear that they are coming from a different point of view or have a different objective from that of their partner. They feel threatened because when they don't deal with it instantly, they magnify the difference in their mind, telling themselves that it is so vast it can never be resolved. Actually, if Aries North Node people honestly reveal where they stand right from the start, these differences become opportunities to connect more deeply with their partner. Often these folks postpone telling the truth for fear of widening an existing difference of opinion. If they want to do something and know their partner will object, they might try to do it without the other person knowing. Then when the other person finds out, the difference of opinion remains, along with the hurt and a breach of trust. By not discussing the situation, they've deprived their partner of the opportunity to be generous and to support them in doing something for their own growth. Now a discussion may pacify the situation, but there will be a lot of work to do to repair the damage to the relationship. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who was an airline pilot. As a side business, he delivered airplanes, which he greatly enjoyed. He wanted to deliver an airplane to Turkey, but his wife wanted him to keep other family commitments. He knew she didn't want him to go on this particular trip, but he felt he needed to do it. So he began making plans for the delivery without discussing it with her. Then when the time came, he said, well, I'm going to take this trip. And his wife said, but we talked about this and you said you wouldn't go. Then he was faced with the fact that he had lied to her. Now in order to go, he would have to bring her into agreement and undo the hurt of the lie. By the time it reached this point, he gave up and didn't go. This is how these folks often lose the opportunity to do what they want, because they know that solving the communication problem with their partner is more important than what they want to do. It brings the relationship back into sync, but they are left feeling resentful because once again they've sacrificed their own desires to keep the peace. This is why they must be willing to come clean from the beginning and let their partner see not only what they want to do, but why it is important to them. They need to sit down with their partner and discuss their own desires and fears. In the example, my client could have said to his wife, there's something I want to share with you. It's something really important to me. And my concern is that you're not going to realize how important it is. I'm concerned that you won't support me and then I won't do it. This may seem manipulative, but it's really an honest voicing of concerns. Once acknowledged, the fears dissolve. Then my client could have communicated his desired direction to move. I want to deliver an airplane to a buyer in Turkey. It's important to me because I want to build my own business and establish independent income. It's something that will give me personal satisfaction and build my confidence. Once the partner sees that the direction Aries North Node wants to take has a larger outcome, she has the opportunity to demonstrate love by supporting him. If the partner still doesn't support his independent direction, Aries North Node should reevaluate whether the partnership is truly allowing for both people's individual growth. Yeah, good stuff. Postponing decisions. Aries North Node people habitually put the other person first and neglect feeding their own life force the energy it needs to grow stronger. When they give up the direction of their own life, they become weak on all levels. They need their partner's energy to survive. They are learning the necessity of participating in activities that excite them as an individual. Out of a desire to be fair,
These folks often postpone making decisions for themselves until they've consulted their partner. Unfortunately, when they look at a situation from the other person's point of view, they may not be true to their own impulses for fear of hurting the other person. When in doubt, they can ask themselves, are my actions making me feel good about myself? If so, their best bet is to first verbalize what they want and then ask the other person what he or she would like. It's a simple technique, yet one that supports them in being themselves in a way that is also fair to their partner. For example, an Aries North Node person may be driving home from work and sees a marquee advertising the new release of Gone with the Wind. Instantly, her sense of excitement says, yes, I want to go see that movie with Tom. Normally, she would go home and say, hi, Tom, do you have any plans for tonight? And her husband might say, gosh, I'm exhausted. I thought we'd just stay home, watch Monday Night Football, and take something out of the freezer for dinner. Being accustomed to diplomacy, tact, and manipulation, she would probably respond indirectly. I'll bet it would make you feel a lot better to go to a movie tonight and just get out of the house. I don't want to go out, and you know how much I like Monday Night Football. I know, Tom, but we haven't been out together in such a long time. At that point, her husband, feeling manipulated, would probably explode and insist on staying home. She would storm off feeling resentful and thinking, we never do what I want. We always have to do what he wants. Yet the fact is, she never even mentioned the movie. A better approach is for the Aries North Node person to mention her preference first in a direct way and then ask the other person what he had in mind. She could have said, hi, Tom, on the way home I noticed they're showing a new release of Gone with the Wind at the theater. I got so excited. I would just love for us to go see it tonight. Do you have any plans? He would have said, gosh, I'm exhausted. I was hoping we could stay home and watch football. Aries North Nodes are experts at compromise. Once both positions are on the table, they can see a solution that will be fair. Well, I can see that you're tired, and the only night for Monday Night Football is Monday night, so why don't we stay home tonight, and then tomorrow we'll go see the movie. There we go. Fear of commitment. Owing to past lives of feeling manipulated or abused in relationships, in this lifetime, Aries North Node people are afraid of relationships and marriage, recognizing they have a tendency to give too much and lose themselves. So although they're very attracted to relationships, part of them holds back, preferring the single life to taking the risk of once again losing independence. Although in many ways they are natural marriage partners, they may subconsciously sabotage close relationships before they reach the stage of making a commitment, or they may convince themselves that as much as they long for a partner, they just haven't found the right person. There are various modern-day solutions to their hesitancy. Being in a monogamous relationship and maintaining separate residence, or living with their partner without a formal commitment. Marriage can work if they have first made a conscious decision to be faithful to themselves and their own integrity. Ultimately, it's the same challenge. First developing their own independent identity and then learning how to relate with their partner in independent and cooperative ways. Independence. Aries North Node people tend to think they need permission from their partner before it's okay for them to take independent action. They start checking in with the partner in a childlike way, indulging in extravagant manipulations and justifications to obtain approval and support. They give away their power to the partner, and then they feel they have to become adversarial to be themselves, or they may simply give up on what they wanted to do. In this lifetime, it works better for them to approach other people on an adult level. This means letting their partner know that their intentions and plans with the energy of leadership, courage, and excitement without letting themselves or the other person know how inwardly fragile they feel. If their partner has reservations, they can explain that for their own self-discovery and personal growth, they need to go ahead with their decision, at which point the partner will adapt and go along, or else they can begin negotiations for how both people can win. For their primary relationship to be successful, Aries North Node people are learning the value of doing things by themselves and pursuing activities that bring a sense of personal satisfaction. Then they won't need to share energy with just one other person in order to be happy. They can expand and interact with many different people while developing and strengthening their own identity. Once they have developed their own sense of independence, they can really connect with and enjoy their primary partner because each individual has something to offer. Because their battery has been charged outside the relationship, they have more energy to exchange within the relationship. But Aries North Node people aren't always clear about what they want to do. It can be more difficult for them to make up their minds than for many of other nodal groups. These folks are always trying to discern what others want, what they want, and what would be fair in any situation. Naturally, weighing all these considerations takes time. If Aries North Nodes allow themselves to be pressured into making a hasty decision, they're generally unhappy with the results. These folks cannot allow themselves to get stampeded. When an emotional component is introduced into the situation, they lose clarity and become vulnerable to going along with something that may not be in their best interest. They are learning not to make any decisions or to agree to anything under emotional pressure. When they feel this kind of energy in a situation, the best thing to say is, I'm not going to make this decision under emotional pressure. That will give them time to regain balance and clarity. Or they could say, it's going to take me some time to weigh what's been said. Everything sounds valid to me, but I need some time for it to settle in. I'd like to continue this at a later date. Especially in personal relationships, they need to speak honestly and directly. There's emotional pressure here. That's not the way I'm going to decide. Their feedback gives the other person the opportunity to become aware of what they are doing. It also validates one of the facets of the Aries North Node's person's identity, sensitivity to others, and awareness of what is going on in relationships. Being upfront with their identity in this way helps Aries North Nodes to gain strength and self-confidence. Selfishness. Ooh. In this culture, selfishness is considered a negative quality. However, Aries North Node people have overdone the quality of selflessness in past lives, so now they must consciously practice selfishness just to get back to center. The irony is that when they take action they consider selfish, trusting themselves and acting on their initial impulse to do what makes them feel happy and strong, later they find it was actually the best decision for everyone involved. It can be tough for these folks to put themselves first. For example, if they're at a party and not feeling well, it takes a lot of courage for them to say, I need to leave, or can you take me home? They're thinking, if I leave, what will others think? Do they need me to be here to make it easier for them? They become so fixated on others that sometimes their bodies have to really overreact to force them to pay attention to themselves. When Aries North Node people acknowledge their feelings and express their impulses without having to be rational, it works for everyone. After all, no one can see the bigger picture. In the example, it could be that their need to go home will take the other person out of a situation that, had they stayed, would have resulted in a serious problem that no one could have foreseen. Aries North Node people's honest, impulsive responses automatically bring justice to the circumstances around them. For example, they may feel uncomfortable in a situation and say, for some reason I feel upset. I don't know what it is. Then the other person may say, gosh, I bet when I mentioned fill in the blank, it triggered that upset. That really wasn't fair. When Aries North Nodes communicate in a non-confrontational way, it gives others a chance to recognize what they're doing and alter their behavior. Goals. Self-discovery. The joy of self-discovery is one of the greatest highs for Aries North Node people in this lifetime. Their best technique for self-discovery is the courage to follow their impulses. It may seem illogical, but this approach will manifest vitality in their lives. Their style may resemble that of the Aries ram, sometimes butting their heads, taking chances, and getting hurt. But that's how they find out who they are. The path of self-discovery involves taking risks and experiencing the difficult facets of themselves rather than results. If self-discovery is their conscious underlying motive behind any action, they will never lose, because whatever happens will reveal more about who they are. Self-reflection. When these folks see themselves through the eyes of others, they can see who others think they are or who others want them to be, but it isn't really them. They have to be themselves no matter how other people perceive them. And they aren't going to find out who they are until they begin expressing their inner impulses and letting people know what's really going on with them. Seeing themselves through others' eyes equals how to lose for Aries North Nodes. It dilutes their confidence in making decisions based on their own nature. As they begin seeing themselves through their own eyes, they can start doing things that please them, increase their energy, and bolster themselves so they feel confident and nourished. They are learning that their behavior doesn't always have to be logical, and they don't have to justify themselves and their decisions. They're also learning to shift focus from being sensitive to the ebbs and flows of others' needs and emotions to being sensitive to the ebbs and flows within themselves. As they develop this skill and begin to live in a way that is fair to self, they find the sense of justice they have been seeking. Only by respecting and honoring themselves can they expect others to treat them fairly. They respect themselves when they let others know their needs and expectations in relationships. When they are honest about who they are and what they expect, they will attract people who resonate with their values and can give back to them what they need. Self-love. Aries North Node people are learning to turn their well-developed capacity for love to loving themselves. One of the reasons they postpone letting others see where they stand is that they are insecure. Thus, one of their challenges is to validate and give approval to self. They need to support their sense of self by allowing themselves to be seen. Once they begin to reveal themselves to others, they build trust by seeing that self-revelation actually works. To motivate themselves to take this risk, these folks can review their past experiences and see that the other ways they've tried to balance relationships, compromise or evasion, have not worked. To change the outcome, they need to change their methods for dealing with others in close relationships. In loving self, they are supporting themselves and actualizing their own dreams. When they get to a place of loving themselves enough to really want their ideas to work out, they will realize that honesty is the only way to do it. How am I going to make this idea work? The only way I can do it is by taking out the barrier of dishonesty. Then the energy of the relationship supports them rather than opposes them. In the beginning, their fears make them think they will face opposition, but they have to be willing to walk through that fear for the sake of their idea. Then, because they're not hiding anything, they can focus all their energy in the direction they want to go and even enlist the support of others in putting their plans into action. When Aries North Node people put themselves first in a natural way, everyone wins. What actions make them feel stronger, happier, more complete, and satisfied? Self-love involves making choices that support themselves. They can make a start by asking some basic questions. What is going to help me to survive? What will help me to further my goals? Which road is best in terms of reducing stress and benefiting my health? Assertiveness. In realizing the goal of constructive assertiveness, Aries North Node people must let go of a subconscious attachment to being a nice person, which was their identity in past lives. In order for their new authentic identity to emerge, they need to express themselves with no preconceived notions of what they ought to do. The idea is to be impulsive and say what first comes to mind. Honest assertiveness will teach them who they are and validate their true identity apart from others' projections. Rather than wait for others, these folks need to allow their own inner impulses to motivate them to take immediate action. As they validate their impulses by acting on them, their impulses will become stronger and more energizing. Aries North Node people are learning another aspect of assertiveness, which is to let others know the boundaries of their identity, to stand up for themselves, and to not allow others to abuse them. They assume that others will be sensitive to them out of love, but this is not always the case. Their job is to learn to be sensitive to themselves and have enough self-love to not allow themselves to be hurt. There is a story of an enlightened master who was traveling through India. He came to a village and noticed there were no children playing. "Where are all the children?" the master asked. "Master, there's a huge serpent in the woods who comes at night and eats the children," replied one of the villagers. "Please help us." So the master went into the woods. "Serpent, show yourself before me." And because all beings are subject to an enlightened master, the serpent slid out of his hiding place. "Serpent, it is wrong for you to eat all the children of this village. You must never eat another child," admonished the master. The servant was ashamed and replied, "Yes, master." The enlightened master continued his travel, and 10 years later he came to the same village and saw children of all ages, but in one corner he noticed a group of children involved in some intense activity. The master approached and in the center of their circle found the serpent, wounded and nearly dead from their torture. The master chased the children away and said to the serpent, "My friend, how is it that you've let this happen to you?" The serpent replied, "But master, you said I was not to eat the children." The master answered, "O foolish serpent, I told you not to bite. I didn't tell you not to hiss." I love that. Oh my gosh. This is what Aries North Node people are learning, to hiss at the very beginning of abuse in a relationship. They need to let others know when their sensitivity has been wounded or when they feel inequity in giving or when they need more support. The idea is to let others know before they feel taken advantage of and withdraw from the relationship, either physically or psychologically. If they allow others to abuse them, everyone loses. Trust. Trusting the self. A major goal for Aries North Node people is learning to trust themselves and be themselves, to find a healthy way of relating that doesn't trap them into being a support system for other people. In their relationships, the end result won't be love and fairness unless they risk the honesty and integrity of being exactly who they are. It means trusting their intuitive wisdom that isn't coming from such a strong base of love that if they really express that inner spark, will work out for everyone involved. This takes courage and a willingness to experiment, but when these folks trust enough to risk it, they'll find that it works. Because they're not used to being a leader, they tend to fall back if others initially resist their direction. They think it's an indication that they're off track, but actually their ideas are unique and innovative, so the first response from others is resistance. People nearly always resist a new idea because it means change. It's a natural response, and part of being a leader is understanding that. As Aries North Nodes continue to make a show of confidence and follow their inner impulses, they'll find that others will often adapt and go along with their decisions. They're learning to experience the joy of self-discovery. Life is an adventure, and as they view it that way and begin following up their spontaneous impulses and ideas with action, a sense of fullness and happiness begins to grow within them. But they have to make that decision to trust their own instinctive impulses. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who paid into an Oscar pool at work. She had her own intuition about who was going to win, but then she started talking to other people about their opinions, lost confidence in her choices, and went with their decisions. When she lost in the pool, she felt very defeated and wished she had trusted her own instincts instead. These folks need to stop doubting themselves and simply start being themselves. Ooh. Their challenge is to act on their spontaneous impulses. When they take responsibility for creating their own happiness by actively pursuing a direction that could help them reach their goal, they are led to activities and/or people that answer their needs. After taking one step, the right idea about what action to take next always seems to come to them. For example, I had an Aries North Node client who had been yearning for an appropriate romantic partner for years. However, scarcity of any potential partners was interspersed with a few disastrous relationships. Unhappiness and depression plagued her until she had to turn to antidepressants for relief. Finally, she let go of her fantasy of finding Prince Charming and began pursuing activities that gave her a feeling of confidence and made her happy. She started feeling better, and as she became more actively involved in things, jogging was a source of enjoyment, but she didn't want to begin a routine all by herself in the dark early morning hours that were best for her schedule. Rather than postpone jogging until she met someone who had a similar schedule, she took the initiative and placed an ad for a morning jogging partner in the local paper. 4 people responded, she began running with them, and one turned out to be Prince Charming. But this only came about when she ceased looking for others for fulfillment and began filling her needs in a direct and logical way. Trusting negative emotions. Aries North Node people always want to pretend that everything is fine. They feel guilty about having a so-called negative emotion. Owing to lack of past life experience, being in touch with their individuality, they aren't always aware of their emotional responses at the time they are happening. Sometimes they experience an emotion and do not recognize it until a few weeks later when they think back and realize, I was really angry. A friend may say, how was the month of January for you? And they'll say, now that you mention it, I felt really lonely and depressed. But during January, if someone had asked how they felt, they would have responded, just fine. So it is to their advantage to give themselves time out on a regular basis to get in touch with what's going on inside. When they're not aware of their emotions, they often react to things in a rational way that surprises them. When this happens, their tendency is to go off by themselves, re-experience the emotion, and think about it so they can be more rational. This works well, especially if they can let the other person know, for some reason I feel upset, but I'm not sure why. In this way, they're honestly acknowledging their feelings without taking it out on the other person. Even if they do explode afterwards, they can say, for some reason I got upset, I'm not sure why, but I'll think about it and get back to you. Even after the fact, it's a helpful process. Sometimes these folks are cruel and hurtful, but they feel good doing it. They are angry. There have been too many past incarnations where they were nice at their own expense. So now out of the blue, they lash out at someone who's close to them, someone whose love they can count on anyway. They unleash their anger and then apologize. Subconsciously, they want to see if these people will love them no matter what, as they have so often accepted others, so that they can better accept themselves. In this lifetime, Aries North Node people are learning to integrate negative emotions, anger, resentment, and the like. This energy is healthy for them to express. It's their power that they suppressed in past lives to get along with others, and now these feelings demand attention. These so-called negative emotions are their strength, but in a coarse, unrefined form. Rage, anger, and the like are all part of the yang energy, the potent, assertive, leadership energy, the masculine side of themselves that has been so heavily repressed. Now Aries North Node people must tap into this energy and integrate it with the gentle, sensitive energy they have developed so well in past incarnations. This will facilitate the healthy expression of their warrior nature. An excellent technique to help them with this process is a regular program of physical exercise. Taking a martial arts class would be perfect for releasing and integrating this intense energy. And if that energy is being released consistently and constructively, it won't come out inappropriately. These folks need hard physical exercise, aerobics, boxing, racquetball, tennis, activities that give expression to their warrior nature, and they'll feel great about doing it. Aries North Node people have an aversion to competition, but actually competition is very good for them. They get nervous about watching others compete, but when they themselves compete, it brings out the best in them and they handle it beautifully. It strengthens and validates what has been suppressed in past lives. They may fear losing, but if they review their past experience, they are always able to shake it off, and then they are glad the other person won. If they do win, they feel good and they handle winning in a way that's nice. So they win either way, as long as they go in wanting to win. For these folks to enjoy competition, they must feel there is something worth competing for. They can also build strength by competing against themselves. Instead of giving up after 5 miles, they should try to go farther. They need to do things that reveal how strong and capable they are. Also, they may see other people doing things, and that gives them the impetus to try something new. In this case, they're comparing themselves to others in a positive way that encourages their own growth. Claiming one's power. Aries North Node people are learning to claim their own power and to stand in their power when relating to others. They are coming into their own. Sometimes they get scared when they see how powerful they can be when they're present in their own bodies and fully grounded in their own identity. These natives still feel shy and have a fear of expressing themselves. When they don't stand in their own power, however, often it is because their minds are making them afraid of being wrong. Being wrong is not the problem for these folks. They're afraid if they're wrong, their power is at risk of being invalidated. But if they look back on experiences when they've put themselves on the line and been wrong, they've still felt validated because they took a stand and discovered something new about themselves. Being present in their power and taking a stand are more important for them than the outcome. They must follow their impulses and take action. That is what makes the difference in feeling good about themselves. Then they are owning their power and they feel good about their life because they are in charge. When these folks verbalize their needs and follow through on their own ideas, they feel exhilarated. Leadership. Aries North Node people have had many past lives supporting others and being followers. In this incarnation, they are to lead, first themselves and then others. So it's healthy for the warrior within them to emerge. From a very early age, these folks tend to find gratification working in unusual areas, doing jobs that others don't usually do. This can lead to a position where they're doing harder work, but in the process of becoming really good at it, they gain a lot in terms of personal growth and development. They hesitate to enter jobs in which they are just another number, regardless of material benefits, because it's important to them to be an individual. When they analyze things, they have a slightly different point of view than most people and enjoy being different in every regard. One of the primary perks of leadership for Aries North Node people is that they enjoy using their individuality to benefit others. If they are the leader, they can control the work atmosphere and set a positive mood for those around them. Owing to so many past incarnations, being the support person for others, these folks are born knowing how to be supportive. They're sensitive and know what other people need to be happy. Since we all subconsciously project that everyone else is like us, these folks assume that others also know about support. So when they begin to lead, they don't understand why others don't support them properly. After all, they're providing the leadership, the ideas, the environment, even the good mood. The reason others don't respond with support is that they don't have a clue about how to be good support people. Therefore, when they are acting as leaders, Aries North Node people must consciously focus on what they need from others to feel supported. Rather than silently expect that others will be sensitive to their needs, they need to communicate directly and objectively what they want. Rather than tell others what they're doing wrong or how they're a disappointment, Aries North nodes must positively point the way, which gives others the energy to rise to the occasion. In this way, they allow others to grow and learn how to be supportive. One of Aries North Node's jobs in this lifetime is to teach other people, primarily their partners, how to love and how to be sensitive to the identity of another person. They're learning to creatively teach others how to be supportive rather than resenting them for not knowing how. A support person has to be conscious of the other person all the time. It takes effort, but that's what makes people feel supported. This is some of the knowledge that Aries North Node people are uniquely equipped to impart. By being themselves, they teach others how to be supportive through love and compassion. Interdependence. Aries North Node people tend to be the classic codependent types. They have a history of depending on others to fill their needs and then the feeling that people have let them down. In this incarnation, they want to develop their independent self without closing themselves off to the benefits of a primary relationship. To gain success, they need to view their relationships in terms of interdependence, whereby two people assist each other in developing their own independent strengths, encouraging each other in their capacity to fend for themselves. Then, complete within themselves, they can have separate adventures appropriate to each other's unique identity and two different worlds of experience to share with each other. A healthy relationship is one where two people bolster each other's identities as separate individuals while working toward a common goal. Rather than being caught up in the energy of the relationship dynamic, the idea is for each to consciously remain in his or her own power while participating with the partner. These folks have had many past incarnations, supporting others with no thought for themselves. They tend to discount their instinct that tells them when they are giving beyond the point of balance, which drains their life force. They don't usually notice the energy loss as long as the other person is there, but when they're alone, they feel drained. In this lifetime, they're learning to reattune themselves and allow their internal sense of moderation to regulate their giving. The process of sharing energy needs to be mutually regenerative. After all, the supply of golden eggs one has to give to others depends on the goose being alive and healthy. In past lives, these people gave others all their golden eggs and then started giving away the goose. Now they are learning to keep the goose strong and well so they can give away the golden eggs without depleting the source. In one-on-one relationships, avoiding codependence means not seeking to fill in when the partner has a need, but rather to encourage her in knowing that 1, she has plenty of talent and energy to handle things on her own, and 2, there are others they can work with to get support. For example, the partner may want to have her paintings displayed in local galleries. Rather than pitching in and calling the galleries, Aries North Node could suggest that they ask a friend or help to hire someone or get an agent. This leaves Aries North Node free to pursue their own interest. The transition from codependence to interdependence is a 3-stage process. Number 1, codependent stage. 2 people totally tuned into each other and compensating for each other's weaknesses so that the team can survive. Number 2, independent stage. Each person being completely self-reliant, each person taking full responsibility for his or her own projects, money, and day-to-day survival. Number 3, interdependent stage. One person independent and self-sufficient in his or her own right, uniting with another independent, strong individual to form a mutually supportive relationship and work toward shared goals. When Aries North Node people reach the stage of personal growth where they are ready for independent relationships, they are ready to shine. Here is your healing theme song for my Aries North Nodes. Music has a unique power to emotionally support us in taking risks, so I have written a healing song for each nodal group to help shift its energy in a positive way. Going through the Judgment Day. The message of this song or poem is meant to encourage Aries North Node people to shift from codependent tendencies toward reliance on their own impulses, which are firmly grounded in love, to lead them in the right direction. Selected lyrics. You can read all the books that have ever been written. You can ask of those around you to show you the way. You can study the mysteries a long time hidden, but you're the only one who can take you through the Judgment Day. And you can't rely on anyone else for glory. Don't depend on the outside to show you the way. Put away the books, go beyond the brain. Trust the light within you to guide you through the pain, and you're the only one who could ever know what it takes to make you whole. And it's the light within you that will guide you through the judgment day. All right, all my Aries North Nodes, I hope you have enjoyed this. This is great for if you are an Aries North Node, or if you are with an Aries North Node, will help you understand them a whole lot better. And next time we will be moving on to the second chapter, which is the North Node in Taurus. So have a wonderful day, afternoon, or evening whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you soon. Take care.